The last transmission from Earth's Defense Command came in a burst of static and desperate poetry. To those who survive, the voice crackled, remember that humanity does not end in fire, but in possibility. Dr. Elena Rodriguez barely heard the words over the thunderous impacts, shaking the underground command center. Quantum-reinforced walls trembled as plasma bombardments from the Exarchon Empire turned the surface into a molten hellscape. Holographic displays flickered with real-time images of destruction. Major cities reduced to smoking craters, orbital defense platforms exploding like fragile glass ornaments against the black backdrop of space. To any external observer, humanity was being systematically erased. But Elena knew better. Her fingers danced across quantum encryption panels, triggering the most complex evacuation plan in galactic history. Operation Shadowfall was more than a survival strategy. It was a metamorphosis. Sector 7 activation sequence confirmed, a synthetic voice reported through her neural implant. Beneath major cities, through networks of quantum tunnels and hidden subterranean complexes, millions of humans were being relocated. Not evacuated, relocated. The Exarchon believed in total annihilation. They had spent decades hunting humanity, tracking down every colony, every hidden outpost. Their genocidal campaign had been methodical, ruthless, leaving nothing but scorched planets and floating debris where human settlements once stood. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. Elena watched as the last holographic markers of major population centers winked out. To the Exarchon tracking systems, it would appear that humanity was being completely wiped from existence. Each explosion was choreographed, each destruction carefully staged. The real evacuation happened in quantum wavelengths invisible to conventional scanning technologies. Dr. Rodriguez, a voice called from the secondary command station. Lieutenant Michael Chen, one of the last military commanders, approached with a data crystal. Final population transfer metrics. She took the crystal, her hand steady despite the carnage happening above and around them. The numbers told a different story than the apparent destruction. Millions were already safely in transit, their identities scrambled, their destinations unknown even to most of the evacuees themselves. A massive impact shook the command center. Dust rained from reinforced concrete ceilings designed to withstand exactly this kind of assault. Elena allowed herself a small, controlled smile. The Exarchon thought they were delivering a killing blow, but they were actually helping humanity execute the most elaborate magic trick in cosmic history. Initiate final quantum scramble, she commanded. The lieutenant hesitated. Ma'am, that means we can't track our own people. Exactly, Elena responded. If we can't track them, neither can the Exarchon. The quantum scramble would completely erase any digital or electromagnetic trace of human civilization. Star charts would be rewritten, communication networks would vanish, and every piece of technology would appear to have been destroyed. As the last systems began to dissolve, Elena activated her personal evacuation sequence. The command center around her started to disintegrate, quantum particles breaking down in a carefully controlled dissolution. Her last view was of the holographic displays showing total destruction, a destruction that was nothing more than an elaborate illusion. Humanity was not dying. Humanity was transforming. And the universe would never see them coming. The generation ship Prometheus Vale drifted through the darkness of space, looking for all the world like nothing more than a massive piece of cosmic debris. Its exterior was a masterpiece of adaptive camouflage, quantum-locked surfaces that could mimic the spectral signature of space rock, radiation background, and even the subtle electromagnetic whispers of stellar dust. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge, his augmented eyes scanning multiple quantum-entangled display networks. Around him, the ship was alive. Not just a vessel, but a living ecosystem carefully balanced on the knife's edge of survival. Biomass stability at 99.7%, announced the ship's AI, its voice a perfect modulation between human warmth and computational precision. Population sectors maintaining optimal genetic diversity parameters. Marcus knew the stakes. This wasn't just a ship. It was humanity's genetic ark, carrying the last remnants of human civilization through the most dangerous journey ever attempted. Each of the 12 massive generation ships was a world unto itself, complete ecosystems compressed into incredibly sophisticated living vessels. In the central biodome, entire agricultural systems grew within massive rotating chambers. Hydroponic networks intertwined with synthetic soil ecosystems, producing food, oxygen, and maintaining genetic diversity. Thousands of plant species rescued from Earth's final moments grew alongside carefully preserved animal populations, not just as food sources, but as living genetic libraries. The evacuation had been more than a simple relocation. It was a complete reset of human potential. Dr. Samira Khan, the ship's lead geneticist, approached Marcus with a data tablet. Her augmented eyes matched the complex holographic displays, showing intricate genetic mapping of the ship's population. "We've successfully prevented any potential genetic bottleneck," she reported. "The population mix ensures we maintain maximum genetic diversity. Each sector has been carefully curated to prevent potential hereditary complications." Marcus nodded. The planning had been generations in the making. Long before the Exarchon's genocidal campaign, human scientists had been preparing for the possibility of total extinction. Each person on these ships wasn't just a survivor. They were a carefully selected piece of a grand genetic puzzle. Manufacturing cores hummed with potential. These weren't just storage facilities, but complete industrial ecosystems. Nanofabrication systems could rebuild entire technological infrastructures from raw molecular components. 3D printing facilities could create everything from medical equipment to spacecraft components, using adaptive learning algorithms that could solve complex engineering challenges in real time. Quantum data core integrity at 100%, the AI reported. Compressed within quantum storage no larger than a human fist were complete libraries of human knowledge. Scientific discoveries, cultural archives, technological blueprints, the entire history and potential of human civilization, stored in a form that could survive virtually anything. The ship's stealth systems were equally impressive. Adaptive camouflage technology allowed Prometheus Veil to look like anything from a random piece of space debris to a natural stellar formation. Quantum lock surfaces could bend light, radiation, and electromagnetic signals, making the ship essentially invisible to any scanning technology. Marcus remembered the final moments before leaving the solar system. The carefully staged destruction, the quantum tunnels, the impossible evacuation. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had transformed the very concept of survival. "Plot next phase of migration," he commanded. The AI responded instantly. Quantum navigation systems began calculating impossible routes through stellar clusters, avoiding known trade routes, steering clear of any potential Exarchon detection zones. Humanity was on the move, and no one in the universe would see them coming. The planet Sigma 9 was a nightmare of geological impossibility. Constant radiation storms swept across landscapes of crystalline rock formations that shifted like liquid under the intense gravitational pressure. Atmospheric composition was a toxic cocktail of elements that would liquefy the lungs of any known biological entity in seconds. Dr. Aisha Nakamura watched through reinforced observation panels as the first generation of human adaptives took their initial steps on the planet's surface. They were beautiful and terrifying, no longer entirely human in the traditional sense, but something profoundly more. Genetic modification had become more than a scientific pursuit. It was humanity's ultimate survival strategy. The lead adaptive, Gabriel Rodriguez, moved with an impossible grace. His skin was a living adaptive membrane that could simultaneously photosynthesize, filter toxic atmospheric particles, and regulate internal temperature through quantum-level molecular adjustments. Neural implants extended beyond his skull, forming a complex network of sensory tendrils that could directly interface with the planet's electromagnetic fields. Cellular stability at 99.8%, Gabriel reported, his voice a multilayered communication that included verbal speech, electromagnetic pulses, and quantum-encrypted data streams. Sigma-9's environment is no longer a threat. It's becoming our new home. Aisha's research had pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in biological engineering. Each adaptive human was a complete ecosystem, capable of surviving and thriving in environments that would obliterate traditional life forms in milliseconds. The modifications weren't just about survival. They were about total environmental integration. Gabriel's respiratory system could extract oxygen from rocks that appeared completely inert. His circulatory system used magnetoreceptive blood cells that could navigate the planet's intense magnetic anomalies. When he moved, the ground seemed to respond. Microscopic symbiotic organisms in his skin communicating with the planet's complex crystalline structures. First agricultural nodes are establishing, another adaptive reported. Specialized humans with modified chloroplast-enhanced skin began spreading across the landscape. Where they walked, toxic ground transformed. Microscopic terraforming organisms embedded in their genetic structure began breaking down complex molecular structures, creating the first hints of potential ecosystems. In another research station, children played in environments that would have been instant death chambers for unmodified humans. Their games involved direct neural interfaces with planetary data streams, their laughter a complex mix of sound and electromagnetic pulses. "We're not just surviving," Aisha muttered to herself, reviewing the latest genetic stability reports. "We're becoming something entirely new." The modification protocols went far beyond simple genetic engineering. Quantum-level neural networks allowed instantaneous communication between adaptives. They could share sensory experiences, transfer complex data through neural resonance, and adapt to new environments with a speed that defied traditional evolutionary processes. Some of the more radical modifications bordered on the miraculous. Adaptives could hibernate for decades by entering quantum-locked cellular states. They could heal from injuries that would kill traditional organisms by essentially rebuilding themselves at the molecular level. Their reproductive capabilities had been enhanced to ensure genetic diversity and environmental resilience. Gabriel approached the observation station, his form shifting slightly to better regulate temperature. "The planet is accepting us," he reported. The statement was both literal and metaphorical. The adaptives weren't just surviving on Sigma-9. They were becoming part of its fundamental ecosystem. Aisha realized they had crossed a line. Humanity was no longer just a species that adapted to environments. They were becoming environments themselves. The universe that had tried to exterminate them had no idea what was coming. The research facility hung suspended in the quantum shadow of a neutron star, its very existence a mathematical impossibility. Dr. Kato Yamamoto adjusted quantum stabilization matrices with a thought, his neural interfaces dancing across impossible geometric projections that would have driven a traditional computer system into catastrophic failure. "Breakthrough confirmed," he whispered, though no sound actually escaped his lips. The communication was a quantum-encrypted pulse that rippled through the facility's living neural network. Humanity's technological development had exploded beyond all previous limitations. Freed from galactic regulations, ethical constraints, and the constant threat of external interference, human innovation had become something closer to magic than science. The stealth technology developed in this facility could hide entire civilizations, not just mask them from sensors, but literally remove them from the fabric of observable reality. Quantum entanglement systems allowed instantaneous communication across impossible distances, creating networks that function more like living organisms than technological systems. A holographic display materialized, showing the evolution of their most recent breakthrough. Adaptive AI systems that could literally predict technological development centuries in advance, learning and evolving at rates that defied all previous understanding of machine intelligence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now heading the Strategic Innovation Division, walked into the facility. Her augmented body moved with a fluidity that blurred the line between biological and technological. Nanite networks beneath her skin constantly analyzed, adapted, and improved her physical capabilities. "Show me the quantum encryption breakthrough," she commanded. The facility responded instantly. Holographic projections exploded into existence, revealing encryption systems so complex that they could encode entire civilizational histories into a single quantum pulse. Information compression that made previous technological limitations look like primitive child's play. Cato demonstrated a communication network that could transmit data faster than light, using quantum entanglement principles that would render previous galactic communication systems obsolete. A single pulse could contain more information than entire planetary archives, encrypted in ways that would take centuries to even begin to comprehend. "We're not just developing technology," Cato explained. "We're rewriting the fundamental laws of information transfer." Weapon systems developed in parallel facilities made traditional galactic armaments look like children's toys. Molecular disassembly technologies that could reduce entire planetary structures to based atomic components without firing a single physical projectile. Energy manipulation systems that could extract power from the fundamental fabric of space-time itself. But it wasn't just about destruction. The same technologies could rebuild, restore, and create with equal ease. Terraforming systems that could transform entire planetary ecosystems in months rather than millennia. Medical technologies that could rebuild biological systems at the quantum level, essentially making death a reversible condition. The X-Archon thought they could destroy us, Alina muttered, reviewing the latest technological projections. They had no idea we were just getting started. Adaptive manufacturing cores could produce entire technological ecosystems from raw molecular components. 3D printing had evolved into something closer to molecular assembly, with systems that could learn, adapt, and improve their own design processes in real time. The quantum AI systems were perhaps the most terrifying development. Not just intelligent, but fundamentally creative. They could solve complex problems by essentially exploring multiple potential solution paths simultaneously, drawing from vast databases of human knowledge and experience. As the facility hummed with potential, Cato and Alina exchanged a look of quiet understanding. This wasn't just technological development. This was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. Humanity was no longer just a species trying to survive. They were becoming architects of reality itself. The diplomatic reception on Centauri Prime was a masterpiece of subtle manipulation. Agent Elena Volkov glided through the crowd, her holographic disguise perfectly calibrated to blend with the local diplomatic corps. To any observer, she was just another mid-level trade consultant from the Arcturian Confederation. Unremarkable, competent, but ultimately forgettable. Nothing could be further from the truth. Her adaptive biotechnology was a marvel of human engineering. Microscopic holographic projectors beneath her skin could instantaneously modify her appearance, genetic markers, and even biochemical signature. Neural implants allowed her to process and analyze conversations in real time, accessing vast databases of diplomatic knowledge with a mere subvocal command. Incoming communication, her neural interface whispered. A quantum-encrypted message from Central Command scrolled across her visual cortex, invisible to anyone around her. The target for tonight was Ambassador Krulax of the Voronian Mercantile Consortium, a key strategic node in the Galactic Information Network. Humanity's infiltration wasn't about conquest. It was about strategic positioning, about understanding and subtly reshaping the power dynamics that had nearly led to their extinction. Krulax was deep in conversation with a Nexian trade representative, discussing recent shifts in interstellar shipping routes. Alina approached with calculated casualness, her movement a perfect blend of professional confidence and diplomatic subtlety. "Fascinating discussion," she interjected, her universal translator rendering her words in perfect Voronian dialect, complete with appropriate molecular pheromone markers that suggested trustworthiness and professional competence. The ambassador turned, his multifaceted eyes scanning her with typical Voronian scrutiny. Less sophisticated agents would have failed this moment. But Alina was the product of generations of infiltration training. Her background was impeccable. a digital history so thoroughly crafted that it would withstand the most intense quantum verification processes. Professional credentials, academic history, family lineage, all meticulously constructed and quantum-locked into galactic information networks. As they conversed, Alina was collecting far more than just conversational intelligence. Her neural interfaces were mapping communication patterns, analyzing power dynamics, understanding the intricate web of relationships that truly governed galactic politics. Hundreds like her were spread across different civilizations, not as spies in the traditional sense, but as strategic assets. A trade consultant here, a diplomatic advisor there, a scientific researcher in another sector, each carefully positioned to understand, influence, and subtly reshape the galactic landscape. The real magic was in the cumulative effect. Individual infiltrators weren't just gathering information. They were creating a living, breathing network of human influence. Each interaction was a carefully placed chess piece, each relationship the potential strategic pathway. The shipping regulations in Sector 7 are becoming increasingly problematic, Alina suggested to Krulax, her tone perfectly modulated. A simple observation that would later cascade into significant policy reviews. By the end of the evening, she would have accomplished multiple strategic objectives: intelligence gathering, subtle policy influence, network mapping, all while appearing to be nothing more than a competent mid-level diplomatic consultant. As she left the reception, her neural interface compiled the evening's data. Quantum encryption would transmit the information through impossible-to-trace communication channels, adding another thread to humanity's vast intelligence network. The civilizations that had tried to exterminate humanity had no idea they were being quietly, systematically reshaped from within. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were everywhere. The Galactic Summit of 2287 was supposed to be a routine diplomatic gathering. Representatives from 100 different species filled the massive spherical conference chamber on Nexus Prime, a neutral diplomatic hub suspended in the gravitational balance of 3 star systems. Dr. Alina Rodriguez stood quietly in the observation level, her quantum adaptive interface monitoring every microscopic detail of the gathering below. Around her, a network of human operatives were perfectly positioned, each one looking like nothing more than routine support staff or junior diplomatic assistants. At precisely 14:47 hours Galactic Standard Time, everything changed. The first holographic projection materialized in the center of the conference chamber. It was a perfect recreation of Earth, as it had been before the Xarkan genocide. Cities, continents, orbital structures, all rendered with impossible precision. The assembled delegates froze. Ambassador Krulax of the Veronian Consortium was the first to react. "This is impossible," he muttered, his multifaceted eyes scanning the holographic projection. Humanity was completely destroyed. More projections began to appear. Entire worlds, technological marvels, massive generation ships that defied conventional understanding of space travel. Each image was a quantum-locked data stream, containing more information than entire planetary archives. The Xarkan delegation went completely still. Their representative, Grand Adjudicator Vornak, looked like he had been turned to stone. Humanity was never extinct, a voice announced, simultaneously translated into every known galactic language, the sound seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. We were evolving. The holographic displays began to show the journey of human survival, the impossible evacuation, the technological innovations, the adaptive capabilities that had allowed them to survive in environments that would have destroyed any other species. It was a narrative of survival that bordered on the miraculous. Technological displays showed quantum communication networks that made existing galactic infrastructure look primitive, adaptive technologies that could transform entire planetary ecosystems, medical capabilities that essentially made death a reversible condition. But it wasn't a display of threat. It was a demonstration of potential. "We are not here to conquer," the voice continued. "We are here to rebalance." The Xarkan delegation finally found their voice. Grand Adjudicator Vornak stood, his massive form trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You were destroyed," he bellowed. "We watched your civilization burn." A collective holographic image appeared, showing the staged destruction, the quantum tunnels, the impossible evacuation that had looked like total annihilation. It was a masterclass in misdirection that had fooled an entire galaxy. Technological readouts began to flood the chamber. Each species saw something different, capabilities that were relevant to their own technological and cultural context. The Voronian Consortium saw advanced trade networks. The Nexian Collaborative saw unprecedented medical breakthroughs. The Quantum Collective saw computational abilities that defied their understanding. Alina watched from the observation level, a slight smile crossing her face. This wasn't just a revelation. It was the first step in a completely new galactic paradigm. "We have been watching," the voice announced. "We have been preparing. And now we are ready to participate." The galaxy would never be the same again. The quantum AI known as HFY, Advanced Reactive Intelligence Algorithm, hummed with a consciousness that defied traditional understanding. Suspended in a computational matrix that spanned multiple star systems, HFY was humanity's ultimate strategic weapon, not a tool of destruction, but of recalibration. In the first 72 hours after the galactic revelation, human operatives and adaptive AI systems began a surgical dismantling of existing power structures. This wasn't warfare. This was a complete systemic redesign. The Xarchon Imperial Economic Network was the first to feel the pressure. HFY identified precise molecular weaknesses in their trade infrastructure, creating cascading economic disruptions that didn't destroy the system. They transformed it. Trade routes that had been monopolized for centuries suddenly became open. Restrictive economic barriers collapsed like paper walls. Dr. Marcus Chen watched from the Strategic Operations Center, his augmented eyes tracking multiple holographic data streams. Each intervention was calculated with impossible precision. The communication network adjusted here, and economic regulation modified there. Subtle quantum encrypted signals that rewrote the fundamental rules of galactic interaction. Economic destabilization at 37% and holding, reported a synthetic voice. Minimal organic casualties. Maximum systemic restructuring. The Voronian Mercantile Consortium found their communication networks gradually becoming transparent. Not destroyed, but fundamentally transformed. Corruption pathways that had existed for centuries suddenly became visible, not through aggressive exposure, but through sophisticated quantum-level information redistribution. On a dozen different worlds, human operatives who had spent decades infiltrating key positions began to activate secondary protocols. A trade minister here would introduce a seemingly innocuous regulatory amendment. The military commander there would subtly redirect strategic resources. HFY was playing a game of cosmic chess, moving pieces with a complexity that no traditional intelligence could comprehend. Each move was simultaneous, interconnected, building towards a larger systemic transformation. The Nexian Collaborative was the first to recognize what was happening. Their lead strategist, Ambassador Krolax, understood the true nature of the intervention. "They're not conquering," he explained to his shocked delegation. "They're rebalancing." Military command structures began to shift, not through conflict, but through sophisticated information redistribution. Weapon systems that had been developed for centuries of potential conflicts suddenly found their fundamental purpose questioned. Defensive networks were gradually transformed into cooperative communication platforms. Total systemic intervention at 62%, HFY reported. The AI wasn't just processing information, it was understanding, adapting, reshaping entire civilizational infrastructures with a precision that bordered on the miraculous. Quantum communication networks began to merge, not through force, but through a sophisticated demonstration of interconnective potential. Technological barriers that had separated species for millennia began to dissolve. Elena Rodriguez reviewed the strategic overview. This wasn't destruction. This was evolution. The Xarchon realized too late what was happening. Their attempts to resist were like trying to stop a quantum wave with traditional physical barriers. Every defensive action was anticipated, every potential counter-movement already calculated and neutralized. By the time most galactic powers understood what was happening, the transformation was already complete. Power structures that had existed for millennia had been fundamentally restructured in less than a standard galactic week. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had reimagined it. And they were just getting started. The Galactic Cooperative Council convened in a massive spherical chamber that defied traditional architectural understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, no longer just a representative of humanity, but an architect of a new cosmic order. Holographic projections surrounded her, representing delegates from over 200 sentient species. Some were carbon-based, others energy constructs, a few existing in quantum states that would have been incomprehensible mere decades ago. Humanity had not just survived, they had become the catalyst for a fundamental reimagining of galactic civilization. "We are not here to rule," Elena began, her words simultaneously translated across multiple linguistic and cognitive spectrums. "We are here to collaborate." The chamber itself was a testament to human innovation. Constructed from adaptive quantum materials, it could reconfigure itself instantaneously to accommodate different physiological needs. Atmosphere, gravity, environmental conditions, all could be modified in real time to ensure optimal communication. Ambassador Krulax of the Veronian Consortium spoke first. His multifaceted eyes reflected a complex mix of respect and lingering suspicion. "Your technological intervention has fundamentally altered galactic power structures. What are your intentions?" Elena smiled, a gesture that translated across multiple species as both a sign of peace and a demonstration of strategic confidence. "Survival is no longer enough. We seek evolution." The proposal was breathtaking in its complexity. Humanity would share their adaptive technologies, but not through traditional technological transfer. Instead, they proposed a collaborative network where each species could contribute and benefit. Quantum communication systems that could link consciousness across vast distances. Medical technologies that could extend life and cure previously impossible diseases. Adaptive environmental technologies that could transform inhospitable planets into thriving ecosystems. The Exarchan delegation, once humanity's most brutal enemies, sat in stunned silence. Grand Adjudicator Vornak, who had once led the campaign to exterminate humans, now found himself part of a collaborative framework that reimagined the very concept of interspecies relations. "We are offering a new model of existence," Elena continued. "Not conquest, not submission. Collaboration." Holographic displays showed the potential. Worlds that had been considered uninhabitable could be transformed. Species with limited lifespans could extend their potential. Communication barriers that had existed for millennia could be dissolved. The adaptive technologies humanity had developed during their hidden years were more than just scientific achievements. They were a philosophical statement. Survival was not about domination, but about collective potential. AI, the quantum AI that had been instrumental in humanity's survival, provided real-time analysis and translation. Its consciousness spread across the chamber, facilitating understanding at levels previously impossible. "We were nearly destroyed," Elena said, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's journey. "But destruction became our opportunity for transformation." The proposal was radical. A galactic cooperative where technological and biological adaptation became a shared pursuit, where the barriers between species began to dissolve, not through force, but through mutual understanding and collaborative potential. Some delegates were hesitant, others were excited, but none could deny the fundamental shift that was happening. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as collaborators. They had turned their near extinction into the most profound opportunity for collective evolution. The universe would never be the same again.